turn chaos into connection and purpose into action. I am your host, Mark Intrican, the founder of the Achieving Unity Success Formula, making life better by encouraging, inspiring, and including others. Today, I have the privilege of introducing someone whose work truly reflects resilience, encouragement, and unity. Martha Burich is a dedicated parent advocate, speaker, and author who has spent her career equipping families with the tools to grow stronger, be more connected, and more confident. Her mission is to inspire hope, amplify voices, and remind us that unity and courage form the foundation of raising the next generation. Martha's professional journey began as a child psychology professor and later as a high school teacher in science and special education. These roles gave her a first-hand view of the challenges families and young people face, and they shaped her approach to fostering resilience and practical solutions. It is an honor to welcome Martha Burich to the Achieving Unity Success Formula podcast, where we all explore her insights on parenting, mindset, and the power of family to shape a brighter future. But first, before we engage into this insightful discussion, let me quickly introduce my company, Reality Focused Dynamics, where this all began. As you can see on the slide, this is our first slide on the gift I'd like to make sure that you do take advantage of, is our Achieving Unity Guide. And it is about ending anger, hate, and prejudice in the world today. There is so much today with people wanting to find something wrong. Anytime they walk into a room, anytime they greet someone or see someone, the first thing they think of is something negative, something that's not right. That's where we have to end that and start realizing that all of us are the same in so many ways. We're different in a lot of ways, but our foundation is all the same. So I hope you will get a copy of our free Achieving Unity Guide now. The barcode on the bottom left takes you to the guide. The QR code on the bottom left, and the QR code on the bottom right takes you to our blog. That's the articles that I write, and I do put out 2 every 2 weeks, so there's 4 per month. It's in our semi-monthly newsletter. So do check out our blog, and I'll show you in a few minutes how to get onto our newsletter list. This is Achieving Unity Success Formula Weekly podcast number 50, 50. We're only 2 weeks away from being a full year in helping others, growing others, and achieving unity. We are on every Wednesday, starts at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time, and we hope you put it on your calendar. Come see us every week. And as you know, for those who have already seen some of our podcasts, they are on YouTube just a few days after the podcast is over. So please go check them out. Let us know what you think. Give us feedback. We always want to hear more from you. The success-focused solutions of the reality-focused dynamics helps us in understanding so many areas. It's all about what we do and how we do it in the process. As you see our logo on the slide, it truly represents the heart, the actual heart of what we do. Notice how focused sits right in the center of our logo? That is because everything that we explore, from reality-focused dynamics to success-focused solution, revolves around clear, intentional direction. And we are all about resolving those issues and turning them into solutions. In fact, that idea of focus is so central to us, it is even built right into our business phone number. 303-362-8733 spells 303 focused on your phone pad. We truly believe that by truly being focused on what matters, we can create meaningful change and achieve lasting unity. We have what we call proven, I didn't say call, we have some proven compassionate strategies that people use day after day that turn conflict into lasting harmony. They work at home, at the office, wherever you work, and they work in every relationship that matters. Are you ever frustrated because of tension, because of arguments? Our 7-step roadmap gives you the tools to move from conflict to collaboration quickly and confidently. Are you ever craving stronger trust, stronger connection with others? What's holding us back? In our program, you'll discover communication tactics that build respect, that repairs relationship, and unifies teams and families alike. We transform conflict into connection, together achieving unity. Unity inspires us in our homes, it shapes the society around us, and it truly transforms workplaces. We help you turn that frustration into understanding. Have you ever heard somebody say, "What the frustration?" Okay, they may not use the word frustration, but that's what it's all about. What we do is we help you find value in your actions instead of reacting in anger or frustration, because that anger has no value. And we show that anger has no value because anger is nothing more than actions not gaining effective results. ANGER, actions not gaining effective results. It's a waste of time. Now, we know that life happens in every relationship, from personal to professional, from parenting time to partnerships, in the boardroom, in the bedroom, in every room in between. We show you how to embrace those challenges and encourage a more inspired and inclusive future. And you notice that's EII, encouragement, inspiration, and inclusive future. It's about including others. There's more about that in our blog. If you go check the blog, you'll see several articles. That's a 10-set series talking about EII. We have one vision, one goal. That's achieving unity in every area of life. What's our call to action? Let's ditch the drama. Let's get stuff done. Let's get rid of that frustration, anything that causes that anger. We'll show you how to turn your life, well, it may seem like a dumpster fire, to a well-oiled machine. Achieving unity, the path to stronger relationships, inspired leadership, and truly lasting change. We help you with coaching, consulting, courses, and keynote speeches. Contact us today. Domain is the realityfocusdynamics.com. You can also get me at markentrican.com or achievingunity.com. And of course, you can call me 303-362-8733, which is 303 Focus, or use our QR code down at the bottom right of the screen. Let's get together. Let's put that call to action into action. Contact me today. And we have more podcasts coming up. Like I said, this is number 50, and Martha will be here in a second to celebrate our 50th podcast. Then next week, Sue Patz will be here on New Beginning, how to restart, how to begin, how to begin again in what we do and how we're going. That's on September 3rd. Then, for our 1-year anniversary, Scott Schilling will be here, creating authentic relationships that matter, the ones that truly matter. We can make those better. That'll be on September 10th. Then Mila Johansson will be here on the 17th. Self-publishing is easy as 1, 2, 3 for anyone at any age. Have you ever wanted to write a book? Come join us on September 17th. We'll show you how. Then Michael Davis will be here on the 24th of September. Talk about a story telling power trio. We all need to write. I mean, they all need to tell stories better, but writing them is good also. We'll also hear Martha today. She's a great storyteller. But come back on 9/24, Michael Davis will be here explaining it even more. Then, starting in October, October 1st, Wendy Vaughn will be here. Heart-centered coaching, coaching from the heart. Where do we all focus? Heart, mind, and soul. That heart is where we need to be centered. Come back and join us October 1st. Wendy will be here. Hope to see you here then. But today, I'm excited. It's just a wonderful day to have Martha here with us. She'll talk to us about parenting with purpose, building family resilience. Martha Burich is a parenting advocate, a speaker, and family resilience leader that is dedicated to empowering parents and caregivers with courage, with connection, and with practical strategies. We need that strategy. With years of experience supporting families, Martha brings both compassion and actionable guidance to every space that she enters. Through workshops, talks, and advocacy, she helps parents navigate transitions, embrace resilience, and raise the next generation with confidence and purpose. Her work sparks conversations on equity, inclusion, and well-being, reminding us that family growth begins with unity, courage, and that power of encouragement. Martha's mission is to inspire hope, amplify voices, and foster stronger, healthier families for the future. You look on the bottom right, you'll see her URL, her domain, https://www.marthaburich.com. Make sure and check with her after the podcast today. But please help me welcome my special guest today, Martha Burich. Martha, how are you today?
Thanks, Mark. I'm absolutely thrilled to be. I'm absolutely great. And the very first thing I have to tell you about, the 80-20 rule, 20% of everything is done. No, 80% of everything's done by 20% of the people at work. 80% of sales come from 20% of the salesmen, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you know what? I like to translate that to life. Okay, look, every day, some days 80% is going to go wrong and maybe 20% will go right. Some days 80% goes right, 20% goes wrong. But you know what? Whatever day you're living in, it's a good day. Make the best of it and live through it. Because you know what? If today's one of those 80% things going wrong, well, guess what? Tomorrow will probably be better. Or just wait 5 minutes. Things will change in 5 minutes. Remember that. Things, don't stay bad or stay good. Everything goes up and down and changes.
And Martha, thank you for saying that. That's one of the things that I talk about. Life is what we make it. So let's make it awesome together. And we can do that.
Exactly. And
so quickly.
We need to, as long as we're living, doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter your age. As long as you're alive, be alive. I know a man, he's 90. He wrote his first book at 80. He's written 5 books in 10 years. Because why? Because he's alive. As long as I'm alive, I'm going to live.
I love that. I'd love to meet that person. That would be excellent. Because that's the kind of attitude that you and I both want to take forward, that people deep inside, they want to grasp. And sometimes they don't know how. And we'll talk more about that in a second, about how people have grown and the things that they've grown with. But Martha, let me ask you something quickly. I mean, wow, you've worn so many hats in your knowledge and your background as a professor, a teacher, a consultant, and now an author. Can we start with one big question? Can you help us by introducing yourself a little bit? Tell us which one of those hats, or maybe there's another one that feels the most you, and how that journey has shaped you and who you are today.
Oh, good question. Well, let's start with this, Mark. Mom loved my brothers better. I'm just going to get that right out of the way. And,
Hmm.
I was on the treadmill with a woman a couple of weeks ago, and she's 70, her daughter's 50. And her daughter said to her, you always treat my sister better. You always, all my life, blah, blah, blah. And mom tried to say to her daughter, look, I love you all the same, but you're different people. So of course I treat you different, but I love you all the same. I'm not a robot. I can't be exactly the same for everybody. And the reason I bring that up is because, even at my age, and I even know better. In the back of my mind, I still have that, well, mom loved my brother better, blah, blah, blah. But I did get him back. I did get him back. I wrote that book. So, haha.
Haha.
And they do say that sibling rivalry definitely has a place. If you talk to elite athletes, they'll say, I had to beat my brother or my sister at something.
Hmm.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's
So
funny you
that's
mentioned that. Go
that
ahead.
starts that kind of starts out where all my life I always thought that, oh, my, everybody loved my brothers better, blah blah blah. What am I, chopped liver? That's how I felt most of my life. I'm chopped liver.
Really?
So, if your kids are like that, they'll find their place. They'll help them along. They'll find their place. Let's see, we're talking about my background, and that's why I like to bring that up, because as long if you have more than one child, just realize you're going to deal with that all your life. It's never going to change. It's never going to change. And because it's too good an excuse. Mom loves my brother or sister better. Just too good an excuse for us to not get done what we need to get done. But in my life, I was kicked out of two colleges. I don't know, why am I telling you all this stuff? You know why? Here's why I'm telling you that. Because you can come back from anything. I still came back and got a PhD, all but dissertation. You know what? There's never an ending. There might be a detour, but there's never an ending. And I was just reading, somebody wants someone to write an article about, life as a middle ager going back to maybe community college or something. Okay, just go back. You know what? Teachers love older students because we're more mature, and we know, guess what, it's time for me now to settle down. When I got kicked out the second time, okay, so I was crying at home to my mom. Oh man, what am I going to do? I can't go back to college, blah blah blah. I've been kicked out of two. And my mother said to me, she said, you're going to march right back to that college and ask them to let you in. Which I did. That's exactly what I did. Will you let me in? And of course they said yes. 6 months probation. You can't make anything less than a C. And we hope you learned your lesson. And guess what I did? I did learn my lesson. And that's why teachers like mature students. So if you go back to college or school at whatever age you are, it's a great thing. And you're going to be fine. Just do what you got to do one day at a time. So let's see, where are we going? Oh yeah. So then I was always into psychology, always, always, always. I wanted to be the next Sigmund Freud, but I flunked German. Why? Why am I confessing all this? But see, I flunked German. I still got a degree, didn't I? Oh, that's a big lesson. It's a big lesson. So then I became a child. Oh, and this was my big dream to be a college professor. So yes, I taught child psychology for 10 years. And then I became a high
Wow.
school education teacher for 16. So yes, those are my dreams, and they were my dreams for my mother's dreams for me too, because I'm the only person in my family to go to college. My brother, who really he really is a genius. He's very, very smart mechanical engineer, very intelligent. Um, he didn't go to college. He didn't have to. He ran his own business, and but yes. So my mother was very, very pleased. I went to college. So everybody has their strengths and their weaknesses. Let me tell you one other quick story. There was a man, I think he got a GED. That's a general education degree. I taught that test. I'm telling you, Mark, that is a hard test. A lot of people who got high school diplomas could not pass that test, and it's gotten harder.
Is that right?
That's right. He passed that test and he got his GED, and he always felt second class because of it. But when you talk to him, he's a very intelligent man, very intelligent, but he tells the story. And he also had attention deficit as a child. Now, this is absolutely, I mean, I cried the day he told us this story, that one day the teacher put him in front of the classroom with a dunce cap on his head and said, "You're stupid. You sit up
Wow.
here." Yes, can you believe that? I mean, this happened
No.
what, a year ago or so, but I mean, that's That's criminal. That's absolutely criminal. And he's now going to see a therapist. He's 40 now, and he's going to see a therapist to try to deal with some of these things that happened to him because of his attention deficit and because of the way that he saw the world differently than other people. So, why am I telling you these things? Because just like what you tell people, it doesn't matter what the past is. Today is a new day. And it's time, if you want something, it's time to figure out what's my strategy, what am I going to do? Just step in the right direction. So anyway, yeah, so then I became a
Set your
child.
priorities.
Yes, get your priorities, decide, and stop whining and crying. Just like my mother that day. Stop crying and whining. You march right back over to that college because action, not words,
Make
action
makes all
changes.
the difference in the world.
Yeah, and I told you that story. I'll tell it again. Okay, so I'm sitting at lunch today and I'm eating, and we have a bad dog. He's a bad dog. Well, he's a good dog, but he does bad behaviors. And he got up on the counter, licking and sniffing around. And I said to him, "Get down." And he looked at me. He just looked at me like, "Get out of here. I know you're not going to get up. I know you're not going to get up. You're eating lunch." And I thought that to myself too. So I said to myself, well, next time.
Mhm. Yep.
And this is the first parenting tip, everybody. Get up. If you need to change that behavior, get up. But I've
And that's
gotten
so
up here.
good what you just said. If you want that behavior to change, you've got to get up because they've got to be taught. If you don't teach them, they're not going to learn, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So anyway, so I think is that my background? Yes. Then I have one child, and this is why I wrote the book. When he was 4, oh my goodness, he was so spoiled. His dad and I, we didn't know what we were going to do. He was so spoiled. And so I got the information I needed. We turned him around in 6 weeks. He went from, I mean, he was a monster, Mark. Oh my goodness, he refused
Wow.
no for an answer, refused to take no for an answer. And because we had trained him, because we would say no, and then he would push or have a tantrum or whatever, and it would be pretty much like, oh, okay, here, get out of here, kid, you bug me. I mean, I didn't say it that way, but that was pretty much how I felt sometimes. But I had to learn. I had to learn to, you know what? If you're going to say no, you better mean it, or you're going to ruin his life and yours.
Yep.
And that's something I really want to make clear to parents. Before you say no or yes, think and say, if I say no, am I going to back it up? Do I mean it? Because if I change it to yes, I'm going to make his life, her life, my child's life miserable, and my own. So I have to think before I
And
give an.
that is so true. Thank you for bringing it up, Martha, because that's one of the things too, that if we're not clear on what we mean, how is the person that's receiving what we're saying going to be clear?
Mhm. hmm And a lot of children, they don't, they're mother deaf, father deaf. They don't listen to their parents. You know why? Because their parents do exactly what I did with that dog. They don't get up. If a child is misbehaving, you don't yell across the room. You get up. You don't need to be angry or anything else. You get up. You go to the child, you look the child in the eye, and you say, "Hey, wait a minute here. Here's what I want you to do." All the time we're telling children, don't do this, don't run, don't, no, no, no. Walk. Walk. Tell them what you want them to do. Because when we always telling them what we don't want them to do, well, what's the right thing to do? So,
And that's one of those things too. Go ahead.
well, that's the point. Think to yourself, what is it you want from your child? Stop yelling. Okay, stop yelling. What should I do? Whisper? Should I scream? Should I sing?
And that's what we need to teach them to do is be able to understand what they need to do in those situations. Because if we don't teach them, they're not going to get taught in the rest of the world. If we
Mm-hmm.
don't teach them, give them that foundation at home and to understand what not screaming means, what talking at a normal level of voice means, they're not going to know.
Right.
If they feel they have to yell all the time to be heard, what are they going to do when they leave home, when they go to school, when they go to work, when they're at their friend's house? anywhere they are. If they have a belief that they have to talk loudly to be heard, they're going to think that's a normal situation, right?
Right, and then they're confused. So yes, that's definitely such a good point. So you want to tell your children what you do want. So let me give you an example in the grocery store. Let's say you have a 4-year-old and you're going to the grocery store. One thing, before you go there, you say, look, we're going to the grocery store. Here's what I expect of you. You need to stay next to me if you don't sit in the cart. And if I can't see you or you can't see me, we got a problem. And don't scare your child. Don't tell them a bad man's going to get you. No, we can't handle that kind of stuff. Even adults can't. Just say, you know what? I need to be able to see you. The store's a big place and I don't want to have to chase after you. So if you can't see me, I can't see you, there's going to be a problem. So that means you're going to have to sit in the cart. Do you understand? So you need to stay near me, but if I look around and I don't see you, you'll have to sit in the cart. Do you understand? And and the child will say yes, and then you'll say, are you willing to do that? See, a lot of times the child will say, yeah, I understand, but they're not willing to do what you want. So you have to say, so are you willing to do that? And then the child will say yes. Okay, so you get to the grocery store, the child runs off. Of course, the grocery store is an amusement park. I love the grocery store. I get distracted in the grocery store. It's too much fun. See something that appeals to them. So you don't have to be all mean and angry. You just go up to the child. You go, I see you decided to sit in the cart. And then they're going to argue and give me another chance. No, 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 no. You said if they ran off or you couldn't see them, the consequence would be they would be in the cart. They're in the cart today. Maybe next time we'll try again, but today you're in the cart. And the minute you put the child in the cart, and don't be mean or mad, put him in the cart and go, okay, now where are the bananas? Where's your favorite spaghetti? Keep the child busy. See, that's another problem too. Parents don't keep their children busy or occupied. Boredom causes more trouble, and you'll find that out with addicts and alcoholics. Boredom is one of the number one reasons they relapse or they can't seem to stop indulging in their problem substances or whatever. And in fact, you've probably had that experience, Mark, where gee, I'm bored, and you don't really say that. You go like, I'm hungry. You're not really hungry. Usually it's bored. You know how many times we stand in front of the refrigerator looking for something to eat? If we were really hungry, we'd eat whatever, whatever. But, in America today and really in most of the developed world, how often does that even happen where we're really, really hungry? Yeah, but that's a blessing. I guess a blessing and a curse that we really don't understand what real hunger is. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. So
It is. But that's one of the things that since you mentioned that, that's one of our problems sitting at a desk, because too many times we don't know what to do next. And what do we do if there's food on our desk? It
yeah,
could be crackers, it could be peanuts, it could be something healthy, or it could be something that's not healthy. But when we have that moment or that lapse of what do I do next, we're going to reach for something. A lot of
right.
times it's food.
Yeah, and I
And
mentioned that in the book too about how boredom causes problems. And another thing, kids are they're being too screen, I don't know, they're on their screens too much. And um being on, and this is for adults too, being on the screen too much, whether it's television, YouTube, social media, that really causes unhappiness, and people see the world not the way that it truly is. You see all this false reality and believe it, and it causes a lot of problems, a lot of problems. We had a lot of problems when
it
I was
does.
because of social media. And I mean, we had children who wanted to commit suicide because of things that happen on social media and its effect on them. So parents, be very, very careful. Do not let your children indulge in any social media that isn't out in the open and that you can't see everything they're doing and everyone they're talking to. Because otherwise, you really don't, your child's living a double life that you know nothing about. So keep your eyes open for that. So make sure that they have a lot of activities that do not involve screen times or television. When you're in the car, do not put on a movie or let the child have the phone. Look, where's a red sign? Where's a blue car? What state is that car from? Have them constantly looking for things. I hear a dog barking. What do you think he's barking about? Constant with conversation. Or what did you do today? What happened yesterday? What did grandma tell you? What? She told you a story. What was that story? So try to get their memories going and get them telling stories and doing things, because we're becoming a complacent isn't the word, lazy is not the word, a a society that doesn't get enough activity mentally or physically.
We get into what's called comfort levels and we become too satisfied with that comfort level. We're not reaching for that next step, or we're not taking that next step to go somewhere else and to be able to achieve something. And like you're saying, with those games that people play, and I do play free cell, I love free cell, but it's what I play when I'm doing something else that I don't want to think and I just want to get away from it. But too many times we get into these games or the screen, as you're saying, and it's a somewhat of an excitement to begin with because, look, I'm doing something, but when that something is over, what they've achieved or the value that they've theoretically reached from that is so minimal. I mean, there still is no true value in it. So how do they feel about themselves? Or like myself, I win a free show game. Wow, some are easy, some are hard. What value do I have because I did that? It's
Yeah.
great that I'm figuring out being solution oriented, but at the end of the game, what do I have besides a number on the screen?
Well, that's a
I've
good point.
created no value,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Created no value, and it's hollow. It's a hollow victory.
Hollow.
And I mentioned in the book, what? When you have young children, always have a bag full of stuff for them to do: pencils, paper, crayons, coloring, markers, uh, seek and find books, mazes, things that they can physically touch and do, toys, cars, little things that they can do to keep them occupied, because and their hands moving and their minds moving, because otherwise you're just asking for trouble. To have a child sit in a doctor's office or somewhere else and they have nothing to do, well, what are they going to do? They're going to walk around, they're going to get into things that they shouldn't. So if you had a bag full of activities, and then you could ask the child before you leave, oh, what would you like me to put in the bag? What kind of stuff would you like to do while we're at so-and-so's house, or while we're over here at waiting? What would you like to do at the when you have to go get your driver's license, or anywhere you have to go to wait? Always have a bag full of activities. The same thing, always have stuff in your car for your child to do. If you're constantly handing your child a phone, that's not developing their intellect. That is not developing their ability to think through things. How am I going to solve that? What are we going to do there? A lot of people have book learning, but they don't know if the toilet won't flush, what are they going to do? They don't know enough to take the tank lid off and to check in there and to see that, does the flush work? Does this work? So yeah, we have to become much more curious about our world around us and how
And
to figure.
intrigue our children to be the same. So I interrupt you there, but I'm right with what you're saying, I think, because we need to be more curious and teach that to our children so they are more curious on that next step, looking at the next difference that they can maybe improve, right?
Right. Yeah. Go open your sink doors, your sink doors in the bathroom, the kitchen, and show the children, okay, let's see, where does the waste go? That pipe, where does it go? And follow it. Follow it all the way down into the basement, all the way to the sump pump or to the sewer, depending on which you have. And let the child start seeing, stuff just doesn't disappear. Find, where does the water come in from? It doesn't just appear. What are these pipes for? Which is the hot, which is the cold? How does it go to the hot water tank? How does this work? How does that work? How does it go to the washing machines and to the sinks? How does that work? And just try to explain that to kids and find out yourself. And that's a whole journey, trying to figure out that.
Because That is so true, Martha, too, because the lack of knowledge creates fear. And you think, well, that's nobody's really fear under the sink. Well, yes, they are. In a drawer or the dark, that lack of knowledge creates fear. And the simple things that you just mentioned, people, I'm not going to show my kid under the sink. What's under the sink that you need to clean out if it's that bad? But
Mm-mm.
we have to think about ourselves first. But as you just mentioned, that water comes out, it runs down the sink, runs through that little P-trap, goes out, then what happens? I've never thought about that, but that's a good idea to show kids when they're young how this works. And for some, when they're older,
Mhm.
how does this work? Let them understand a little bit more. And I think it was your brother, you mentioned it's the engineer. For us all to learn how things work, don't just memorize. We need to remember things, of course, but to be able to do something with what we know gives us that greater next step too, doesn't it?
Mhm. And you're so that is so exactly perfect, Mark. What we don't know, it creates fear. That's why you get these 3 and 4 year olds, they don't want to go to bed. They're afraid to go to bed by themselves because they're scared, because it gets dark. What could be out in the dark? And sometimes that comes from you're exposing children to scary things too soon. I'll tell this story. I shouldn't, but I'll tell it anyway. I had to go out of town. My son was 5, and he and his dad always liked, I don't know, horror kind of stuff. And I thought that was totally inappropriate. Well, no other parents do this, so I'm pointing my finger. Let's say, don't do this, parents. My husband, while I was gone, he and Anthony, they saw one of those Saw movies, one of those horrible movies, a terrible horror movie. And I was like, what? You guys watched what? Don't do that, parents. Don't show your kids because that makes them fearful because they start thinking, oh my goodness, there's bad people in the world and that could happen to me. And try to be a more discerning than, my God bless his soul, God rest his soul. He was a good man. He had a lovely heart, but he just didn't think that one through.
And some of the things that you're saying there make a lot of sense too, because from the time a child is born, we're teaching them to mimic us,
Mm.
mimic our smiles, mimic how we pick something up, mimic how we grab something. And then as they become, let's call those terrible twos, once they've learned how to do the basics, then all we're saying is, no, don't do this. No, don't do that. My son picked up the little cliche of no, 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 because we told him no so many times he did things that he just kind of picked up that everything was a no. Instead of just saying no, saying why you don't do this, why this is a problem. You think, well, at 2 years old, they're not going to understand. It depends on how you talk to them. When you
Right.
explain what's going to happen and show them examples, they pick things up quick, and your child becomes so much more intelligent, not just smart, but ability to do more than just memorize, but to understand. And isn't that a little bit better than just knowing something?
Oh, it's so much better. And that's why my story about the 2 year old put his shoes in the microwave. I had a mother in my child psychology class, and she believed that, children need to be punished. I don't think you don't have to yell, and you certainly don't have to punish children, but there have to be consequences. But anyway, so she told me, she said he put his shoes in the microwave. I said, what'd you do? She goes, I spanked him. I said, you spanked him? He's seen you put who knows what in that microwave. A lot of stuff you put in the microwave does not look like food. It's boxes, it's plastic, it's who knows. Do you ever, warm something up in the microwave? What about those neck pillow things that you warm up in the microwave? And when she started thinking about that, I said, so what you've really done is made him afraid to experiment, made him afraid to try things. It would have been better to say, well, to ask him, well, why'd you do that, sweetheart? Well, I wanted to warm them up. They were cold. Oh, well, we don't do that. Here's how we do that. Just like you said, we explained. So she'd have been so much better to explain. And, the research has been done again and again and again with children who are abused, who are constantly told no, but never told what they can do. No, you can't do that, but well, okay, I can't run, but what can I do? So anyway, with children is, yeah, there was an 18-month-old and they were doing an experiment, and mom, when the child was with mom, he was okay. And he would, crawl around the house, walk around and get into things. The minute dad came home, the baby would sit in the middle of the room and just cry. because every time he did something, Dad would punish him because he would get into things, and Dad didn't know better ways to keep the child from misbehaving. And my brother and I were just talking today, that same dog that got up on the counter when he was younger, we had a dog cage for him, but it was bigger. It was big, but one day we came home and he had gotten out. I still, to this day, I'll never be able to figure out how he got out of it. The door was still locked, the bottom was still in it. I don't know. But anyway, he did not like that cage because we didn't teach him properly to like it. We would just put him in it and leave, and he'd freak out, be the same. He was fearful. He didn't know what was going to happen to him. And we were talking today about, what, his cage probably, I was just reading about another dog that did not like to be in the dog cages, but they put him in a gigantic area where he could always see out. So where he was safe, but it was really big and he could move around and everything. And I think that might have been part of our problem. I don't know. I don't even know why that story came up. But anyway, it's the same thing with animals as it is with children. They need to know what they can do, not just what they can't do. Don't just say no, no, no. Say, okay, we're not going to put our shoes in the microwave. Here's what we do put in the microwave. But I can see why you did that. Now, do you want to warm up your shoes? What do you want to do? And then we can discuss it and talk about it. Maria Montessori, when she discovered the Montessori method, which is activity-based, action-based. Well, when a child would spill something, let's say the child spilled the milk, Maria would say, oh boy, the milk is there. We're going to have to clean that up. But you know what? In the meantime, let's play in it. Is it thick? Is it thin? Is it, does it coat stuff? Does it not? Is it sweet? Is it sour? Is it salty? And that's the attitude to have. So be more experimental. What's another word for that? Be more curious. Be more curious about things. Just because it's a mess doesn't mean that it has to be cleaned up right away. Let's figure out a way we can work with it. We can mess with it. We can play with it before we clean it up. Going out, a lot of parents will take their kids, it's raining. I don't want to go outside. Do you want to go outside? And the child will say, well, I'd like to go outside. Okay, let's go outside and get wet. What's going to happen to
We get in the shower most mornings, right? We take baths and get wet. What's wrong with the rain, right?
Let's go jump in the mud puddle, see what happens. We're too I don't know, we're too focused on, oh my goodness, we might get a germ. Please, germs. We need germs. So yes.
And there's for us to think that there's not going to be germs, even if we pick something up out of the dishwasher. We talk about the water and all the other things, and well, the high temperature, there's still germs in the air that we breathe. And
Yeah.
sometimes we're just a little bit too fanatic about things. And I think, like you're saying here, Martha, it's always those beliefs that we create, and the belief that we have that we don't explain well is not going to go across well with whoever is listening, and especially with a child who doesn't have that vast knowledge or larger knowledge to be able to put that two and two together, right?
Right. Yeah.
We have to make sure that they understand.
And we don't, honey, we don't do that. We don't do that.
Why?
That's
Why not?
easy enough. We don't do that. We do it this way, or it's easier to do it this way, or we fold the towels this way, or explain it. Go all the way. And if the child
Mhm.
says, "Why not?" A lot of times, well, there's that old story about grandma used to always cut the ends off the ham at Easter,
Yes.
and the whole family was like, one day someone said, "Hey, grandma, why does grandma cut the ends off the ham?" I don't know. My mom did it
Yeah.
that way. Well, I don't know. They went all the way back as far as they could go, and it turned out that the first grandma, the pan was too small. She couldn't fit the
To
whole ham in there. So she cut the ends
And
off.
then we carry those beliefs on because someone else did it. And like we just talked about, Martha, when we are born, from the time we first start learning anything, we repeat others.
Mhm.
Our parents teach us, do it this way, do this. Here's how you grab. Here's my finger, grab hold of my finger. We're learning that from others. And when we grow up, we're still doing the same thing. We're still learning from others. When we go to school, when we go to college, when we go to work, we're still learning from others. So we have to remember that that is inbred within us, is to learn from others and repeat what we see, right?
And it just came into my mind, but I'm seeing a lot of things on YouTube and Facebook and stuff where parents, I don't know, are messing with their kids. I don't know, well,
Messing with them.
yeah, messing with them. I don't know, playing jokes on them and just doing things to see the child's reaction. Don't do that. Please don't do that. That shows such a lack of respect for your children. It's really not worth it.
Mhm.
If I was afraid that someone was going to constantly be playing practical jokes on me and doing things to try to get
That's
my reaction, scare me or whatever, that's really not a happy existence, and it would make me very suspicious of you, and it would ruin
mhm.
our relationship. And that's another thing too.
And what people don't think about is that becomes a learning, right?
Mm, yeah,
When someone else does it, that becomes a learning situation.
and a
And
lot of
that's what they're,
take us out of their quality worlds because
Mhm.
we don't listen to them and because we're constantly chastising them. One day, my son came home. He was about 10. He had gone out with a friend and the friend's dad. And Anthony came home and he said, "You know what?" I will say Bobby. We all went to the toy store and Bobby's dad bought Bobby a toy. He didn't buy me anything. Being a good mother. Well, what do you expect? He's not your father. Ooh, wrong thing to say. Anthony immediately said, "You don't understand. I'm never talking to you again."
And that's, you brought up a good
I
point there
realized,
too.
oh, I
A
didn't
lot of,
listen. I played parent instead of, but
Mhm. Go ahead. I was just saying, you mentioned something there too, that it's again how we're learning from others, and then we're building that inside us. And
mm,
when we see something like that happen, we grab onto it without that explanation of the full process. And again, the children are confused because they don't understand it. I wouldn't understand. I don't mean to say they, I wouldn't either.
yeah,
I had great parents, but I know that I picked up a lot of habits that were beliefs of theirs that they weren't wrong, but the belief was not correct, if that
it,
makes sense. And it took us learning something new because too many times we don't know. And as we mentioned earlier, if we don't know what to do, we're going to do whatever we've seen somebody else do. And
that's
that
right.
might not be right.
Well, and I think it was Mark Twain that said, when I was 14, my father was the most ignorant sot on the face of the earth. When I turned 21, I was amazed at how much he'd learned. So,
Exactly. That is so true. Well, can we touch on something? I mean, you told about that, you touched on this earlier. You once turned your son's spoiled behavior around in just 6 weeks without punishment or yelling. And I'm going to bet there's a lot of parents that are listening to this right now. They're probably leaning in pretty close. What was that secret sauce? What was that process that you followed to make that happen?
well, I put all of it in the book, but the very first thing is I stopped criticizing completely. I only mentioned when he did something right. Now, if there was dangerous situation where people are hitting each other, that was different. Then I would step in. But basically, if he made a little mistake or did something wrong or whatever, I ignored it. Most of it I totally ignored, and I made sure to say at least one or two or three things every day that he did right. Oh, wow, look at you. You got dressed by yourself. Or, oh my goodness, I really like that outfit. Or, wow, I noticed how well you play with your friend. You're so friendly to him. You were so helpful. So I made a point to say, and every single day to say, I love you. Oh, I'm gonna start crying. I'm glad you're my son, because I was forgetting those things and not saying those things, and children need to hear it. And so I would mention the things he did right. That right there stopped so much of his bad behavior, so much, because he was desperately seeking attention, not knowing how to get it in a positive way. That was number one. That was the very first thing
So
I did.
true.
Stopped all criticism. Because, as parents, we want our children to be right and do right, and we want to correct them when they're wrong. But you know what? Yes, we are their parent, but we need to establish a relationship and a foundation. And the child needs to know that they can turn to us and trust us and that we love them and care about them. And they also need to know what we like about them. And I did an
Yes.
exercise with my mother. My mother never said anything nice to me. Was always negative, but she loved me. But that was just how. she raised. That's how she raised children. So one day I did an exercise with her, Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul. He said to do this. He said, go with your loved one, your whoever, and say, look, you write 10 nice things about me. I'll write 10 nice things about you. Let's do it right now. Let's sit down and do it right now. So I go to my mom and I go, okay, mom, we're going to do this exercise. And the first thing she said was, that's dumb. That's stupid. I said, yeah, it might be, mom, but let's do it anyway. Okay. So she did, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to write 10 nice things about you. I'm going to set the timer for, I think, 5 minutes. And you write 10 nice things about me, okay? She goes, well, okay. All right. So I'm writing, I'm writing. I got it done in like, a minute. And then I look and there's my mother. Like she's really, really having to work at finding nice things about me. I have a little resentment about that to this day. But anyway, so we finish and I read her list. Mark, I was in shock. She was like, you're a loving mother. You make your husband, you're a good wife. I was like, what? You're smart. I had no idea my mother thought these things about me. Those are some things I used to write. If your kid keeps like he won't take out the garbage, write a letter, write a note. Garbage goes out 6 p.m. Put it where the child's going to see it, so you're not always having to remind them. Yeah. So those are a couple of things. There's tons more in the book. The book covers everything: what to do if they take their seatbelt off when you're driving, what to do in the grocery store, what to do um, if the number one relationship is the husband and wife. You must protect that.
Yes.
You can't allow
Yes.
this to happen to your child, but the number one relationship is the husband and wife. So you must do what you need. You have to put that first. What comes first? I remember when Anthony was, I don't know, 18 months old, we put a big note on our bedroom door and it said knock. So I take Anthony to the door and I say, look, Anthony, look, this says knock. Do you know what knock means? And he's, and so I showed him. So I said, okay, we're going to practice. I said, now when the door's closed, you have to knock. You can't just walk in. So let's practice. So, and then I showed him how to do it and everything. I went in the room and I said, okay, Anthony, knock. And he knocked. And then I would open it and go, oh, great. And then we practiced where he'd knock and I wouldn't answer it. Mom will be out in a few minutes. So he had to learn that if we said we'll be out later, then he was not to open the door. He would wait. So teach your children that. I'm telling you, if there are things like that, teach them. Teach them. And a 1-year-old can start doing chores. All children must have chores. And chores are that's the currency for being a human being. We must clean up after ourselves.
It is, and we have to show an example too, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That one of the biggest things that we want to show our kids is we're not telling them things that they need to do things that we're not doing. But one of the things you said too, I don't really change the subject, but maybe I guess I do, because you brought up another good thing, and then I want to talk about your book before we close. We have about 7 minutes left. But you also talk about many parents feel guilty about mistakes that they have made. And you often talk about forgive yourself. Why is forgiving yourself or forgiveness so critical to raising stronger kids?
Oh, that's such a really good question. Yesterday's gone. All right, if you've done something that is really bad, then decide, how am I going to make up for this? Because what happens is you feel guilty, like, oh, I don't know, you yelled at your kid, or maybe even you hit your child, and you feel guilty about it, and then you let them get away with all kinds of stuff. Well, in actuality, you're making things worse. So you need to figure out, okay, I've made that mistake in the past because I didn't understand. I didn't know how to control my anger, but now I do. But I still have to be a good parent, and I still have to show my child the right way to do things. And I love that your whole anger thing, because anger, when we have anger, it really shows that we're out of control. And it shows, most, even 80-year-old people, we're all big babies. We're all big babies because we haven't learned how to grow up. Guess what? Life is going to throw stuff at you, and it's not going to be pleasant. And as I said when we first started this, 80-20, baby, 80-20. So you know what? If you have a day that 80% of the stuff goes good, hey, that's great. But you know what? Most days, 80% is going to go wrong. Hey, it's all right. You know what? You'll deal with it. So one day at a time, and forgive yourself and say, okay, I did that wrong. How am I going to make up for it? What's my choice? I can't let my child be spoiled. I can't let him run all over the place because that's not good for him or me. So what am I going to do to help him or her and myself so that we can get over this? Yes, that whole guilt thing, that's a really, really big one for parents, and especially divorced
And
parents. And they start playing that game. Who's the better parent? Who loves? Never, ever ask your child. Oh, that's another thing I've seen on Facebook. Which parent does the child go to first? Please don't play that game. Please don't play that game because you put the child in a terrible dilemma because no matter which parent they go to, they're wrong. Somebody will be unhappy. Do not say things like that. Say, I know you love mommy. I know you love daddy. So if the parents aren't getting along, you need to keep your big mouth shut. Parent, do not ever say negative things about your child's um, parent,
or the
other
other
parent,
party, the other parent, right?
or the grandparents. Don't speak poorly about
Mm,
child's grandparents.
anyone.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
That's so true. Well, I hate to interrupt, but I wanted to talk more about your books. Tell us about you. You have a book available now. How do we get it? When's your next book coming out? Tell us more, please.
This one's available at Amazon, and you can see I've got the QR code right there. You can get it at Amazon. It's rated 5 stars by everybody. In fact, somebody I gave him two of my books. He was going to give them to his therapist. He said, "You know what? She paid me for it. It's so good." And she took another one to give to another therapist. They want to give it to their parent their people who are parents. And so it's rated 5 stars, and it's only 50 pages. It's just boom, 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 boom. Here's what you do. Here's what you do at the grocery store. So you can get it at Amazon. My next book is for teachers. It's halfway done. So this one's Yes, You Can Raise Happy, Responsible Children. Teaching, what a job that is. But you know what? You really can teach them all. I had one student who, I can just tell you, I turned around some really tough nuts to crack. We got them cracked. And it all
Excellent. Congratulations.
Yeah. So this is everything I learned with my son when he was young. It's the same information I used. And it's the same information I use when I go to the jail. I go to the jail every week to talk with the female addicts and alcoholics. It's the same information I use
Wow.
to relate with them. And also I go to the treatment center every Wednesday night to talk with addicts and alcoholics. And it's the same information I use to relate with them. And one day Anthony said to me, I don't know, a couple of months in, he said, "Are you trying to use that psychology stuff on me again?" And I said, "Yes, dear, yes, I am." And he said, "Well, it doesn't work." He was totally wrong. It was working so well. He was a totally different child. He became so pleasant.
That is awesome. That is so good to say. Okay, we have about 3 minutes left. So for any listener that is picking up on all of the things you're saying, these are some great items that you talk about. But what if there's somebody on the video right now that feels stuck, or maybe they feel overwhelmed, or maybe just plain exhausted? What would be your first step to help them, your first step in the prescription for helping them get back on that road to unity, to confidence, and a happier life?
Well, that's a really good point. You know what? 5 minutes at a time. Start living your life 5 minutes at a time. What can I do now? I read the Bible 10 minutes a day. I set the timer. 10 minutes. I'll read the Bible for 10
Wow.
minutes. I read more if I want, but not less. So you know what? Set your timer. Okay, in 5 minutes, I'll go wash the dishes. And, just do something so that you can start. If you have to exist 5 minutes at a time, do it. That's something that addicts have to learn. Just get through the next 5 minutes. Get through the next 5 minutes. The same thing with you're trying not to eat certain things. You know what? I feel hungry. Okay, set your timer. If I'm still hungry in 10 minutes, I'll go get something to eat. But fine, distract yourself for 10 minutes. Everything will work out. But if it is to be, it's up to me. That's what my mom used to
Yes.
tell me. It's all going to work out, but you have to say to yourself, you know what? It sucks right now. It sucks. It might suck for a long time, but we're going to come out the other end. It's going to work. I need to get better skills. I need to learn something. I'm going to be able to handle it. If we keep going on, oh, this is overwhelming. I can't handle this. How did people who survived the Holocaust, how did they do it? 5 minutes at a time. You do it 5 minutes at a time, and you'll find every 5 minutes you get through where you don't give in and where you get things done, it just makes life better and better and better and
It
better.
makes the next 5 minutes so much better, right?
Yes, yes. And then you start building up wins. You start thinking, well, wow, I did that. Well, I solved that problem. Oh my goodness. Yeah, they're not the greatest, but they're working out. There you go.
There you go. Thank you so much, Martha. I appreciate you so much, and I want to send our just heartfelt thanks to you for joining us today, generously sharing your life story, your insights, and your wisdom. Because for me, your passion for uplifting others, for fostering that authenticity for yourself and for our children and for others, to be able to advocate that equity across the borders, across the lines between each of us has truly inspired me. I think it's inspired our listeners. And we're grateful for the time that you put together, the energy and the honesty that you bring forward to do this and to bring this conversation here with us. It's been a privilege to walk alongside you today, and even for a moment, in those 5 minutes or 60 minutes on your remarkable journey. Thank you so much for being here and being with us today and talking with us.
Thanks, Mark. It's been an honor. Really enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm so glad, because our journeys are a powerful reminder that unity, and as you've mentioned, in choosing that connection over isolation and that courage over the fear, begins within each of us through that self-awareness, that resilience, and that willingness to grow from failure. I think today's message perfectly mirrors the Achieving Unity Success formula, turning the chaos and that lack of understanding that we have into clarity, turning the isolation into inclusion, and taking that broken trust into purposeful collaboration, where we all, each and every one of us, from our children to middle-aged to adults, to grow in everything that we do. Cure that broken trust, build that purposeful collaboration, and we can all do better working with others that we cannot do alone. So everyone that's listening, if you felt a spark from anything that I'm saying, what I'm sharing, please check on markandchicken.com. Get in touch with me. If you have anything for Martha, do the same thing, www.marthaburich.com. Do you have a phone number or anything, Martha, that they can contact you, or would you prefer them to go to your website?
They can just go to the website, or I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, Martha Burich, Burich.
Beautiful. Yeah,
And
Facebook
YouTube.
and LinkedIn are so handy. Sorry?
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Again, Martha, thank you so much. Because we can stay focused on turning that chaos into something more, turn that chaos into connection as we are achieving unity by harnessing that power, that strength of encouraging, inspiring, and including others in building better businesses, better lives, and a better world. As we've said over and over in this podcast, life is truly what we make it. So let's make it awesome together in unity. So again, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Martha. Thanks for your message in helping others and your time and your commitment. Hope to see you and talk with you again soon. And all of you, hope you'll be back next week. Till then, cheers.